Before we begin, a quick shout out to bbaxter8 for giving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. If you enjoy our show, I recommend that you go and leave us a 5-star review also. Head on over to Apple Podcasts, which used to be known as iTunes, and leave your review there. Thanks, and enjoy the show.
You're listening to the Author Inside You podcast, a weekly podcast designed to motivate you to finish writing a book, choose a publisher, and have your work build an audience. Keep listening if you're looking to get propelled into the next chapter of your life. And now, it's the Author Inside You podcast with your host, Leah and Matt Rafferty.
Hello, and welcome to the Author Inside You podcast. I'm Matt Rafferty.
And I'm Leah Rafferty.
Today, our guest is Clyde Riddlesbrood, author of The Greatest Brochure in the World. Clyde grew up in the entertainment industry, working with his father at a dinner theater in New Jersey, and now has owned his own theater company since 2000. Welcome, Clyde.
Hello. Thanks for having me on.
So, Clyde, I love the title of your book, The Greatest Brochure in the World. Can you tell us a little bit about the title and the book?
The book is very unique and very unusual. As a matter of fact, when some people ask me the target audience of the people that I wrote this book for, I say something unusual. I say, you know what? I'm hoping that maybe 50 years after I'm dead, somebody will find this book tucked away in an old trunk in somebody's attic, pick it up and read it and say, oh my God, this is so awesome.
so drama in the book. To find the book. Yeah.
So it's very cool. And also, it actually has an interesting beginning to how I started this book. And the way it all started was we had a PR person, and we have often used the mascot, which was in some ways myself, which is Clyde P Riddlesbrood, in a lot of our shows, and sometimes in our advertising. We use it on our website.
Wait, maybe we should back up. So can you tell us what you say we? Do you own a company?
Yes, the Riddlesbrood Touring Theater Company is our theater, and we operate out of New Jersey, and we do Pennsylvania, New York, Delaware, pretty much everywhere in the greater New York area. And we always were looking for some way to, try to get our branding out there, our story out there. So we had a PR person, and she said, well, maybe you should write a little bio about yourself or something like that about this mascot that you guys use. And so I said, okay. Well, I started writing it, and come to find out, she actually had to leave. She got, she got pregnant, and she just couldn't work anymore for a while. So we lost her. But I got so into writing this that for the next 5 years, I just kept writing it.
Wow.
Yeah, and it just grew and grew and grew, and it kind of was just a fun, bizarre thing that I started to do on my own, and eventually it began to take shape and just turned into a metafictional novel.
Wow.
Well, what's pretty cool is you had no intention of writing a book, and now look what happened, That's
Exactly.
pretty cool. A nice journey.
It was a very interesting journey, and it also forced me to clarify a lot of things that, I was not really sure about, or we didn't really completely ever have figured out about particularly our company's brand, but also just things about how we work and the story, the buyer's journey, all those types of things.
So is the book aimed at just the people who come to your shows?
There's the interesting thing. You see, the book actually is really supposed to be as if you found a brochure. And everybody's found them, in a rack card or something. Mm-hmm. Somebody hands you a little brochure. Sure. But just imagine if the brochure never ended. And after you got a few pages in, it becomes some unbelievably compelling fantasy story that draws you into it. So it actually is that. In many ways, it is a brochure, but we just kept writing it until it became something like an amazing story, and that really we kept to that the whole way. As far as who it's actually addressed to, that's a little interesting too, because it's really addressed towards anyone that's interested in fantasy, but also we kind of had an idea when I was writing it that I wanted to mythologize the mundane. And what I mean by that is, you know how they have like the new Harry Potter world, you know?
Yes, sure.
Well, and of course they created that whole business based upon the books.
Correct.
So the books happened, and then the business happened. So what I thought is, wouldn't it be interesting? What if it was the reverse? What if first there was a little pizza shop, and they decided the owner of the pizza shop needed more business, and he decided to write this unbelievably compelling, Dungeons and Dragons fantasy swords and sorcerers book called Harry Potter, and it all takes place where this little kid goes into the back of a pizza shop, and that's how he gets into the other world.
Oh,
very
that's
good.
cool.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I thought would be great. I said, we'll make this whole thing center around our little theater company, and then if it ever takes off, well, of course, the theater company should do better.
Right.
Yes,
yeah.
exactly.
Great marketing,
Sure.
right? Yeah.
That was the idea. Hasn't happened yet, but we're working on it.
Well, so do you sell the book at your shows?
Actually, most of the times that we sell the books, after some of the shows. Sometimes we give them away, as prizes to winners, because we do a lot of murder mystery shows, where the customers that are coming to the show, they have to see if they can figure out who done it.
Yeah, that's fun.
Yep.
And we also, though, have a lot of other shows that we do, like dinner theater and some community theater shows. And on those, we usually have a table set up in the lobby, and we sell the books, very inexpensively, because we want to get them out there, But that's the main way we've done it. Of course, we've used social media and stuff too.
Right. So when you were describing writing the book, you said we. Did you have a co-author?
Actually, no. Sometimes it's a little tricky because, the book is so intimately connected with the theater company that sometimes we is important because in many ways, a lot of the things that are in the story are in many ways connected to the theater and things that have happened over the years. So it's almost like a big lie told with a million truths. So sometimes it's important to say we, because any of the actors that have worked with us over the years would say, I know where you're getting that from. I remember that a little bit, So that's why I say that sometimes.
Well, it has to be a good read, because just listening to you speak, you make it very intriguing. Like, you have to read this book. So, it sounds like it's a good story.
Well, I have 25 years on stage to train me to do that. So
well, that's nice. That's great. Congratulations.
So tell us, after you wrote the book, how did you go about publishing it? What did you use for publishing?
Well, you know what? I did do a couple things. First, I was going to try to go the traditional route. And I struck out with, I had a friend that had published a book years ago, and he tried to get me into this. It was a little publisher, and I was completely ignorant about how anything worked. I didn't know nothing. And that didn't really work. It didn't get anywhere, and I learned pretty quickly that wasn't going to work. So I just watched a bunch of YouTube videos, and I read a bunch of blogs about self-publishing, and that's really how I self-educated myself on how to go about it. And at the end of the day, I wound up picking CreateSpace. And that was the best one that I found for me, because it wasn't so easy, because, I'm smart enough to know how to do quite a bit of things. But at the same time, it wasn't so overly complicated that I couldn't do it.
Yeah, we hear good things about CreateSpace. I think I've never heard anyone say about YouTube, looking up on YouTube. So thank you for that tip, because that's a new one. Thank you.
Oh, it's a great way. I mean, nowadays it's almost like you don't even need colleges or schools anymore, because
Right,
every time you want to learn how to do something, everybody's got videos and tons and tons and tons of videos. So it's amazing. You can learn almost anything.
So did you find CreateSpace easy to work with?
Yeah, I think the main thing I liked about CreateSpace is it gave you some basic templates, because I wrote my entire book in Word, and right when I found out, they like to have you upload it in PDF form. But it wasn't that difficult. They gave you a lot of word templates. So, one of the most difficult things that I was seeing on YouTube and reading on blogs were people saying, oh my God, I wrote my whole book in Word. And now, I can't get the pages to work. I can't get the formatting right.
Okay.
And how where the binding comes together and they glue the pages together, you have to have like special spacing on the inner pages.
And that is all very, very frustrating.
And that can be very frustrating.
Yeah.
I didn't even have to do that. I literally downloaded one of their Word. I mean, you choose the size, like 6x9. And then I literally chose that. And then it was a little time consuming, but I just cut and pasted like basically the whole thing. And by the end of an hour, I really had the whole thing in there.
That is amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, I really had it all in there. Now, I did have an editor go through it, and they did some, formatting things to help me out because I didn't really have a lot of time to do that. But really, it was very simple, very simple.
So during your process, did you have other friends or relatives read it? Did you send it off to any professionals or?
Well, you know what? I wish I could say I did. The reality is, maybe it's a little bit different for me, but I found that none of my friends or nobody really wanted to read it, so, and I'm sure a lot of writers have had that problem, but, nobody I couldn't get anybody to really read it, or they said they would, and months would go by,
never got back to
kind of thing.
Right.
So, so what I did is, again, I went back online. I said, what do people do? So I luckily found a bunch of different places where people would do beta reading. Like I was using this thing called Upwork and Elance. I think Elance turned into Upwork now, but they're basically like a freelance site. And I went through them and I would just post a job and say, hey, I need a beta reader.
I see.
And what I did is, now that could cost some money because each time, some people really wanted a lot of money, like $600 to beta read it.
Well, that's pretty
But they would call it editing. And so I had to be very, very specific and say, no. I don't need you to go through and correct all the spelling and all that. I really just want you to read it and take notes about, the story and what the character and what do you think works, what do you think doesn't work. So that's how I did it. I probably did about maybe 10 or 11 beta readers.
Okay.
It probably cost me close to $1,000 over the space of maybe 6 to 8 months.
Okay.
To do it all. But I got really good feedback. Some you get junk, I thought it was great, but because you're paying for it, you are going to get it, and you're going to get more.
Good. You want
better.
Real life. You want people to say what they're thinking.
Yeah. So I found that successful to me. I really could not get anybody that I knew to read it.
Okay. And then what did you do for your cover? For the cover art?
That I actually used 99 Designs.
And
I don't know if you've ever used them, but
sure, I've certainly heard about them. You kind of put the job out there, and people bid on it and give you some suggestions.
Exactly. I think I paid $500.
And did you have any revisions, or you like the first one they gave you?
No, there was a lot of revisions.
Oh, okay.
A lot of revisions. Yeah, because I had a reasonably clear concept of what I wanted it to be. Actually, there was a couple different ways. We also have a logo, like a really unusual tribal-like symbol that we use for the theater company, and we were going to make that the center of it. But the artist really liked this idea of the coat rack, which is obviously a very very important artifact in the tale, and that being front and center, I eventually was won over to, because it just is so curious. Like, well, why? What is that?
Mm-hmm.
Why is that prominent? So yeah, I was very happy, but there was a lot of revisions. But it was a great process. I mean, we had several artists that were working on some of it, and eventually you narrow it down to the few that you think are pretty on target, and then they go through another iteration, and then eventually you pick the artist that you think is really getting you. and then they basically finish it.
So
and
it always seems unfair to me that the other artists do all that work. I know I'm not saying about yours, but I'm just saying, the whole idea. But it seems to work because lots of people use 99 Designs and they're happy with it,
Yeah, I would agree that, I necessarily wouldn't want to be a graphic designer that way, but I do have some respect for it because I do a lot of my own posters and my own flyers for the theater. So, I was relatively cognizant of getting people out that because some people, they just throw some trash up there real quick. And, I mean, listen, if anybody's ever used Photoshop, you can slap something crummy together in all of about 10 seconds.
Right.
So, let's not act like some of that is that a lot of work, and I gave them a lot of source pictures, and I said, I didn't say, hey, create whatever you want. I said, here's our color scheme. Here's a sample of a bunch of different covers that I really like the style.
So you really
they had
pointed
a
them
lot
in the
to
right
go
direction. You really did.
Yeah, I made it so that, they really knew a very clear idea of what they should be doing. So,
And so then getting back to selling the books, you buy them from Create Space, have them shipped to your house, and then take them to your shows. Is that how you do it?
Primarily, yeah, that's the way we do it. Now, we do have sometimes people buy them, obviously, from Amazon, but that's less frequent. Most of the stuff that we do is things that we sell on our own. Now, obviously, this is probably something that other writers don't like to hear. Obviously, the fact that we're a theater company puts us in a position where we're in front of a lot of people so we can get, sell these books a little bit better.
Yeah.
But that being said, I forget who said this to me, and even before I was done the book, even before I was halfway through the book, I really did recognize that, I didn't think I was going to write this book and I was going to become rich off people buying it. I really thought, this is going to be something that people will, if they read and if they purchase, it'll give them a sense of great gravitas and depth about the company. Like, who would go that far to write an entire story?
Right. Usually it's a paragraph on a web page.
Right. So we wanted to go the extreme to try to prove, because think about it, we're a theater company, we're creative. What better way to demonstrate the power of your creativity than to create a great piece of art? And that's what I attempted to do.
And hence the title.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's also metafictional. I don't know if you guys are ever into that. I've always loved those kind of like 18th century books where, you pick it up and it's supposed to be a diary.
Oh, yeah, right.
Like, I love that kind of stuff. So I thought this was such a cool angle. Like, I never read anything where it was supposed to be a sales brochure that became so much more.
Yeah, that's very unique. Yeah, that is very cool.
So do you keep in touch with the woman who gave you the original idea?
Oh, yeah. Actually, she, believe it or not, she still does stuff for us.
Oh, good.
Even now, she writes some blogs. So yeah, we still work with her. Her name is Pamela, and she's very nice. But not as much, but really part-time here and there.
Good. How do you promote your books besides selling them at your show? On Facebook, Twitter?
I hate to say it, I don't. The podcast that I'm doing with you guys is a form of some of that. But the reality is, I'll be honest, I haven't struck the right chord in the right way to find the best way to get this really out there. So we do a lot of promotional events where, I don't know if you guys around you have any like street fairs, and parks will have like big type of trade shows and things. So we do go to a lot of them anyway to promote people to buy our private party shows. So we'll try to sell them there too.
Good.
But I'll be honest, I mean, if we sell 5 a month, that would be considered a great month.
Good. Wow.
I would say we give away more than we actually sell. But you know what? I'm not unhappy with that, even though it is a shame because, you put 5+ years of your life into that. It would be nice if there was a way to to make more money off of it. But, we live with the world we live in.
Yeah, and things can change. Someone was speaking to us and said, it's all about timing sometimes also. And, maybe this just isn't the right time right now, but in a couple months, this could just take off. You just never know. So that's what's so nice, that you're pursuing it, and here you are talking, and hopefully we can help you and get some more books. So because you just never know, everything's timing.
Well, you know what? Again, my motivation too, and my goal is a little bit different. If I don't make a lot of money with the book, I don't care. My hope is that someone unknown will stumble into one of these books and say, "This is interesting. What else am I doing?" And they'll start reading it and then get hooked. And then what it is they won't believe, because they won't believe this Riddlesbrood Theater Company really exists. Right. But in the book, they'll think it's all ridiculous, right? But in the book, we constantly refer to our website and put our real phone number in and our real email address, and we have real coupons in there. So
this sounds like a good TV series, actually.
Right. So if people really did, this is really crazy. If somebody did call the number, I would answer the phone.
Oh, wow. That is pretty cool.
It'd be like finding out Harry Potter really did exist. So that's really the hook that I'm hoping, and it hasn't happened yet, but I'm waiting for that call one day where somebody calls me and they go, "Are you Clyde P Riddlesbrood?"
That would be funny. So I think people are probably reading it saying, "Oh, this has got to be a fake number," or it's
right. It's got to be fake. Yeah,
it's still a store.
Some people say they go to the local libraries and donate it to the local library. Have you done anything like that?
You know what? I haven't done much of that yet. Okay. I haven't had the time, really. I don't exactly know the process.
It sounds like they just walked in. The authors have told us they just walk into their local library and say, "I would like to donate this book," and
they put it on the shelf.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could. There is one local bookseller that we use in Mount Laurel. The name is escaping me, but there is one bookseller that did buy a bunch of the books and actually stocks it and sells it.
Wonderful.
That's
so
nice.
We did get lucky with a couple people like that.
And that must be fun to see your book in the bookstore.
Oh, yeah. And then, we, of course, took pictures and we put it on Facebook and things like that.
Right.
Great.
So, Clyde, what's the best advice you can give somebody who's working on a book and doesn't have it quite completely finished yet?
Put it down and give it a month off and then come back to it. I noticed that with me is I would have fits and starts. I would like really be hot and heavy and couldn't get off my keyboard for weeks. And then I would get busy and I just couldn't really devote that time. And then I would come back to it a couple months later and I would pick up where I left off and I would reread and I would realize with new eyes that a lot of things I didn't like. And then I went back and ripped it apart and redid it. And in some ways, again, this is the first novel I've ever written. So, it wasn't, some people flow charted out and stuff. Mm-hmm. This was literally completely organic. A lot of this was writing from the seat of my pants.
Yeah, that's good.
And then, then going back and saying, "Oh, that didn't work and that didn't work, and I'm going to change this and I'm going to change that." So it was definitely one of those things where it wasn't written, it was rewritten. But as far as that,
I think that's great advice to give it a break, set it aside, and come back to it, because it's amazing what you see when you come back to something. Even writing an email and you come back to it the next day and you look at it and you're like, "Oh, that's not really what I wanted to say."
You don't realize how, and even dumb things. Like, I mean, there were so many times that I would put it back and then I would reread it again. I would say, "Oh, why didn't I see this? I can connect these two things, and that makes total sense." But I didn't. So you just need to see it with fresh eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Are you thinking about writing a second novel?
Well, you know what? This book was supposed to be a trilogy, but I did something rather unusual in this book. And what I did was I implanted there are several places in the book where this is a first-person novel, so the author is consistently talking straight to the reader. Sometimes he makes fun of the reader. Sometimes he threatens the reader.
Oh my gosh!
So all this kind of stuff, because he's trying to get you to call the number and order a show. Okay. And of course, you don't do that. Instead, you keep reading. So he gets more infuriated with you as it goes. So there's a tension there, you know.
I think I might see why people aren't calling your number.
Yeah, right. Well, you'd have to read it. It's definitely, but a lot of it's tongue in cheek and it's fun. But it's definitely a crazy, unusual ride. And maybe it's not for everybody, but there's people out there that have really thought it was pretty amazing.
It sounds really amazing. I still think it'd be a great TV show.
Hey, we'll see.
Yeah, wouldn't that be something? Well. You never know what will happen in life.
Mm-hmm. And then what's the best way for our listeners to find your book?
Well, the best way is our name, Riddlesbrood, is very unusual, and no one has anything like it. So if you type in Riddlesbrood book in Google, you'll find it right away. It's on Amazon, and it's also on CreateSpace. And it's also for sale at any of our events or shows. And if you actually come to a show and win the murder mystery, then you get one for free. So how can you argue with that? So www.riddlesbrood.com/book is one place.
Okay.
But again, type it into Google, and type book, you'll find it immediately.
Okay. Well, we will have that in the show notes. And then do you want to tell us a little bit? You talked about coming to see your shows. Why don't you tell us quickly about your shows?
Sure. Well, you know what? The Riddlesbrood Theater Company is very unique in that we're a touring company, and kind of take our roots and business model back from the Middle Ages. You know, we don't have our own stage, our own theater. We instead haunt other people's facilities, move from town to town. But most of the shows we do are at restaurants, bank facilities, schools, colleges, some theaters, casinos, hotels. So pretty much anywhere there's a facility, we can come and perform a show. So, and we do this primarily for private events and company parties. Sometimes like, family reunion or fundraiser or company parties. So they're very, very, very popular. And of course, other times theaters, they just need some entertainment that can come in and out real fast. So that's really what we do, and we travel all around, and it's fun. And I think we've done more than 2,000 shows.
Wow.
In our 17 years of existence.
Sounds like a lot of fun. I especially would think it would be fun for a company to hire you for their employees. It'd be a nice, fun night out.
Oh, yeah. And all the shows we do, it's important, are all very improvisational comedy shows. So they're all fun, interactive. We get people laughing and goofing around. And, it's definitely not like watching, Death of a Salesman there. This is more like watching Ace Ventura: Pet Detective on steroids,
It sounds like I'm ready to come tonight.
Yeah.
All right. It's a lot of fun. I would encourage you, if you're in the New York, Philly area, give us a call. We'll do a private party for your event. Mention this show. We'll give you 10% off, right?
Well, thank you. So one last question. The best way for people to get in touch with you?
The website is probably the best. There's a way, or you can just give us a call. The best number, I guess, is 609-377-9125. And by the way, that's also in the book.
Excellent. Well, I'll put that in the show notes too.
There you go. Yeah. Well, I hope somebody wants to pick it up and read it. I guarantee you they wouldn't be. They would be very happy they did.
Right.
Sounds like it.
All right. Well, Clyde, thanks for joining us today on the Author Inside You podcast.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
That's great.
A different personality came out.
In character. All right. Well, until next time.
Right on.
Thank you for listening to the Author Inside You podcast with your host, Leah and Matt Rafferty.